Hi there, this is Max, and this is the SPIU podcast. And the next episode about foreign volunteers is here. Now we have a special guest. This is a guy from Australia. His name is Scott, and we happy to see you here. And what we want to is to have a bit of your story because you're a wonderful person and you
Okay.
do a lot for us to help us to resist and so on. Please, let's start from this amazing story. How did you find yourself in Ukraine?
Uh, Look, it's I've been following. I've been here before. In 2008, I came to Ukraine on holiday. I have my friend's wife is from Zhytomyr. Hello,
Mm,
Zhytomyr. Um, and so at the outset of the war back in 2014, we'd been following the ongoings of the Russian aggression. But when I call it the invasion improper, back in 2022. I was talking to my friend, and it was kicking off here. It was really went to town, and in an instant I went, I'm going there. And 10 days later, I arrived here. So I arrived on March the 8th or something like that, some 6th or 8th, I can't remember. Um, yeah, I told my work, I said I'm leaving. They said, oh, you know what? I said, oh no, I just need a break. I purchased all my equipment that I think I'd need, and hopped on a plane. I sat down with my children I left on a Friday, and I sat down with my children on a Thursday night. And I've got three children: Ashley, Carson, Taylor. Hello. Um, and I said to them, "I'm going to Ukraine," and they said, "Oh, like bit of shock, obviously." And they said, "When?" And I said, I leave in about 3 hours. I've got to hop on the bus, and my plane flies out, you know, early in the morning. And my eldest daughter went, "Yeah, yeah, that's what you do, Dad." Like, yeah, yeah, okay. And it was sort of no surprise. She was like, and so the reason why I did that, I didn't. One, Australia has these laws about going into a war zone, civilians going to war zone, all that sort of thing, and the bureaucratic, nonsense that'll go with it. And the other reason why I didn't tell anyone is because I didn't want everyone like, oh my God, and just get in your ear and give you doubt or whatever. I just knew what I was doing, and that's what I did. Bought my ticket, and I arrived here. So, um, and started, it became a bunch of firsts. There's so many firsts in my life being here. I was in the emergency services back in Australia and New Zealand. You'd think you see and do everything when you're doing that sort of thing as a volunteer, but it's a different ball game here in Ukraine. So that's what happened. I just went, I'm going, and I did. And in saying that too, I sold everything. This is my third trip to Ukraine, and I own two suitcases. So when I return to Australia, I have two suitcases because everything else I sold. I've given everything I have to Ukraine. So, um, and I feel all the good for it too. You know, it's for the people here. Yeah, look, yeah, look. I really want to say from the outset, I'm no one in particular. I've come here to be on the right side of history, and that's why I'm here. It plays hard. My morals play big on me, and for all the bullshit wars that we've had before, Iraq, Afghanistan, we've followed America through. This is what Australia stands for. We fought in World War II and other previous proper wars. Not taken away from our military, of course, but this is what Australia and New Zealand, our Anzac spirit, are about: defending the people of Ukraine or countries like that. And it's a just war for us to support. Not like the bullshit that Afghanistan, for example. Just what a waste of money that was. Here we should be putting money into Ukraine, but for whatever reasons, yeah, it's complicated. They don't, you know,
That's
or
amazing.
don't do enough. But yeah, you don't do enough, West. You know, you should be standing by Ukraine a
That's true.
lot more than what you've done.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's amazing. And so you couldn't ignore your inner voice, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just
All right.
it was just look, it was the right thing to do. You know, so I did. I came here. Yeah, I arrived in Warsaw. I had a hotel for 2 days or a day. I found there was a supply train leaving Warsaw every night to go to Kyiv. I was trying to figure out how to get across the border because I had no idea. I didn't have a game plan. I just know with my experience as a volunteer, emergency services, I knew I could help. I went to Helm. Luckily, I met some beautiful people there that helped me get on the train when it arrived. A lady came out, spoke English. She said, "Oh, we got to go to the train. The train's here." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And the train was actually moving down the track, and the conductor's pulling me on. I'm throwing my bags on, and she's talking to him as she's running next to the train. He's going, "Oh, okay, yeah, good." And that's how I got on the train. Like I was just okay, and he took me down and gave me a little house, a little my room, on the train, and said, "Oh, you stay here." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Oh, I guess I'm going there. I was expecting hassles. I was just expecting a lot. The way it happened, it was just a bit surreal. So I went, "Oh, okay." We went through the checkpoints, border control, and customs said, like, "Where's my helmet and vest and all that sort of stuff?" And I went, "Oh, I'll get that when I get there. I'll pick all that up." And of course, it didn't exist. I was making up as I went. So, spent the next, I don't know, long time on the train. The train would stop every time there was a jet fighter overhead because, they didn't know if it was a Russian or a Ukrainian. So it was my first insight to the war. I got off in Kyiv at like 4:00 in the morning, and they went, "Oh, okay, I'm here." I did book ahead for accommodation, so I went to my accommodation and spoke to the people and went, like, "Where's the war? Where is it?" And they went, "Oh, it's that way." And so I got my gear and off I went. I went to Irpin and spent the next 7 weeks. Well, it was not so much a living hell for me because I knew what I was getting into, but it was a living hell for the people of Kyiv anyway. The horrors and the shit that I saw, the smells, everything that was happening was, the people were living through it. So, and I just went there to help. I did medical, I did search and rescue in buildings. Mainly, I'd hook up with people who were other just locals. We'd pull the bodies out of the rubble and bag them and leave them sad to say, but on the side of the road, and the police would come and pick them up and do whatever happens next. And so we were doing that, and just going through the rubble and working our way through Irpin and up towards Bucha. I never made it to Bucha, but we didn't know what was happening in Bucha at that time. We just focused on what was around us. At one stage, we had a Russian column come down the road. Well, actually, we didn't know. We were doing this digging in this destroyed building. We knew someone was in there because the smell. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's a body here somewhere. Yeah, because... and someone's like, and we all froze and we're like looking up the road and, because we were very close to the front line, extremely close. And we're like, and of course, not speaking the language, I had no idea what, I was pretty much lost the entire time I was here. And they said, after a little bit, they kind of gathered and went, "Oh, that's Russia." Like, "Oh, we got to go. So we pack up our stuff and we went and we moved, 5 blocks backwards and then started again. And helicopters and, there was just no drones back then. There was no drones. It was a different war back in 2022. Trust me, I was there in 22 and I'm here now and it's different. So that's what I did for the first sort of 7 weeks. And then they realized that Bucha become what happened in Bucha, which is what happened in Irpin as well. They sort of stopped everything, and they were going, oh, there's big war crimes here. And sort of we got pulled out and the restrictions got harder to get through because, it was a bit more lax back then because they were just intently trying to fight, get the Russians out, which they did. Dobre, you got them out of Kiev anyway, so we just got to work on the rest now. And so that's what I did. That was my first 7 weeks. I was living in people's floors. Like they'd invite me in their home and like live on their floor, or in first 2 nights I spent in a destroyed building because I didn't know anyone. I was just helping. But I was prepared for it. Then what? I met a doctor, and she needed aid delivered. So I hired a car and delivered aid, and while I was out delivering aid, I met some people. This is in Dnipro, actually, my first trip to Dnipro. I met another guy, and he goes, oh, he spoke reasonable English. There's people in Kherson. We're doing evacuations. Do you want to help? I went, yep. So I jumped in the car and off to Kherson, or that area, that was fully engaged back then. And, at times we were sort of behind the lines. Like I said, I had no idea where I was. The entire time I was there, GPS would cut out. I had no clue. I just wing it. If there was shooting over there, I'd go, oh, don't go that way. It was quite simple, like, okay, I'll go this way.
We got to go different way, right?
Somewhere else, okay. I've had tracer bullets come across the car and on their way to Kherson. And, well, anyway, I helped with, evacuations there, and it was a little bit interesting. I got some funny stories that happened. One night I pulled over on the side of the road because I didn't want to be driving after curfew. Back then curfew was like everyone wanted to shoot at you after that. So I pulled off, and I was tucked away in some farmer's paddock. I'm asleep, and during the night I get a tap on the window of the car because the car's full of aid, and I'm like, "This is a soldier standing there. He's pointing this handgun at me." I'm like, I opened the door. I said, "G'day, mate. You're up early," and this guy's like, he didn't know what to think. He's like, "Huh? Like what?" And I get out, and he's like. And I'd imagine, because he didn't speak any English at all, this guy, and he's like, I just see the bewilderment in his face. I'm like, yeah, how you going? I'm Scott. He's like, huh? And I was surrounded by a squad, and they're all lined up on me. I'm like, oh. So anyway, we got translators in, because they're very concerned. They had a right to be concerned, and translators come in, and I went back to their, I just happened to park up next to a staging point, which that's why they were a bit freaked out. And they put me up for the night and gave me breakfast next morning and filled my car up. And they're like, oh, I'm sitting around. I was talking to one of the guys, and he had a big sniper's rifle. And I said, oh, mate, what was that for? And, they got translated. And he's like, oh, in case you run. He was like so disappointed. He had me lined up. He said, I think the orders were like, if this guy makes a move, you take him down. Like, you're going to get your first one. And he's like, oh, it didn't happen.
I don't know how to define you. Either you are a heroical person or just crazy,
Well,
Does your family trying to stop you from the next journeys to Ukraine or not?
No, not really. No. They
So they know that this is no chance for that, right?
No. It's funny you say the word crazy, because actually it was that unit that I was with. They gave me my nickname. I'm called Crazy Australia, and I had Australian and New Zealand flags because I'm from New Zealand as well on my car. And I'd get to a checkpoint, and they'd say, "Oh, Crazy Australia," and I'd get through the checkpoint, and so they coined my nickname, and I stuck with it ever since. So it is very. There's a little bit of craziness, bit of stupidity as well, because not knowing where you're going and stuff like that. But if shit happens, it happens. Just the way it is. You can't do anything about it. Like I said, shooting over there, I won't go that way. We'll work around it, and you just got to adapt. and that's what Ukraine's about. It's just adapting, working around stuff, and so
that's true. I know that you are now a part of the very fantastic team. I know this. This team. I know Alina. She was a hero of our podcast as well. And let me know what you are focused now. What you're doing here now. What is your job now here in Ukraine?
Like I said, this is my third trip to Ukraine. So at the start of the war, many organisations came to Ukraine. Like they were everywhere. Individuals like myself, I'm pretty much self-funded. There was, I met some of them. Some of them weren't worth a bag of shit. Like no. And some are really, really good people. And then on this trip, I met up with CNG, and they are one of the best organisations that I've met here in Ukraine. It's Ukrainians helping Ukrainians. Now, that happens everywhere here, but I don't think, maybe it does, but I don't think on the scale of what these guys do. They drive to the cities and villages out here in Donetsk and Donbass. They evacuate people. They bring them back to a shelter. They house them. They help find other accommodation. There's processing, and they care for you right through the stages. Other groups just go get you, bring you back, and go.
I know.
Oh, you're the next. Yeah. But CNG, they're a different operation.
Yeah.
Just incredible, and they're all volunteers. 2 days ago, I was out with Dima. He's sick. He's got the flu. He's like coughing. He's like, oh, I'm miserable. And I made a little Facebook post. I said, look, I'm out with this guy. This is the dedication. He's under the weather, and he's still out here on evacuation and helping people. And it's just incredible. And volunteers, and the money they get is absolutely minimal. They do this out of love for their country, and and that's a big thing. I mean,
Yeah, this is civil resistance.
and what they're doing is hell dangerous. It is dangerous.
Yes,
We've got
that's true.
drones, we've got artillery, the Russians are not far away, especially now with the onset of drones, and we've been our units have been attacked a few times. The cab bombs, the big fuck off explosions they give them, like. If you can hear a drone, you can hear a drone, you can see a drone, and then it'll kill you. Cab bomb just kills you. It's just like
Yeah, the big dangerous thing, right?
Just
Yeah.
It's just so anyway. It's just
All right.
But CNG, look, absolutely amazing group of people. I can't. They haven't received enough accolades. Look, don't get me wrong. There are many organisations throughout Ukraine, but this is one group. I go when I arrive at organisations and meet people. I go all in. And this is one place where I spend my money, and I tell other people to donate to, because it's such a worthy cause.
All right. So as we spoke about that with you, and you're not agree with that, but I still I will insist that you are a historical person, because this is a very like a dark time of the history, and this is very unfair what is happening, and this is the horrible war, and you are an active part, of what is happening, and that's why you are a historical person. And what I want to is like to showcase you as a person, so who you are in regular life there back then in Australia.
Like I said, I'm no one in particular back in Australia. I'm no one in particular here. Um, I was just a dad working, driving trucks, with 3 children, doing sports, coaching, volunteering.
Coaching.
Oh, look, I'm a big rugby fan. So
Oh, right.
rugby's been my lifeline. I was the founder of our local junior club. I'm a member of our Dung Beetle Rugby Club. Go the Dungers. Proud to be a Dung
Yeah, that's
Beetle.
great.
That's our name. Dung Beetle. Everyone goes, why are you called that? And what do Dung Beetles do? I said, they push shit around, and that's what you do in rugby. So it's just that sort of jovial thing. Look, I just drove trucks. Nothing untoward. I'm not a rich person back in Australia. I just did enough to survive and do as much for my children growing up as I could. I was always at school doing parent-teacher help. My girls played, well, all three of my children played rugby, so I coached them rugby. My two eldest then went to netball, so I learned how to play netball, so I became a coach. So I've always been around. Look, I'm just a big kid, so I love being around kids. Children. I'm just a big goof off. Adults shit me. So adult problems. But being around children, they just liven things up. They're just, infuriating, but I mean, and here in UK, they're the future too. And it's going to be a hard, long future for them. So. They're so far behind in education because of, online teaching. The quality is not there for the time being, but the kids are really trying, and that's what I like. I admire what they do. I've got to say, look, after Irpin, seeing all the horrors, you could say, of war, on networking, I met up with a guy called Paul Layden, another Australian, and he contacted me. Said, "Hey, I'm off to Odessa. I'm going to put on a party for kids." He goes, "Do you want to come down and give a hand?" And I went, "Hell yeah!" Like after all that horrible shit, I went, "Yeah." So we rocked up in Odessa and. We went out and bought lollies and we made Australian hamburgers. We invited, we didn't, we had helpers that invited. We just paid for everything.
The boogers was
Yeah,
the kangaroo meat.
Yeah, oh, well, if I could get it here, I would. But, and we just went out and bought, and we had a park in Odessa and we thought 100 people would turn up, 200 people turned up. And we ran out of food and we're like, so we went down to the local magazine or supermarket and we just went, we want all these ice creams and pick up all the ice creams. And the police came with police dogs and we just had a wonderful time. The children, all refugee children, and they were coming out in Mariupol and all that surround back then. And they just had a wonderful time. And I was just going, this is neat. And so, so Paul and I then would find out where the groups of people were in Mykolaiv and Kharkiv. Like, there's a small group of families here that need some help. So we'd load up our backpacks, and I'll leave a photo for you guys, but we'd carry around 300 kilos each of backpacks. We'd actually have to, in suitcases, we'd walk up the road and then walk back and get our suitcases. And we travelled everywhere by train, and we ended up in Kharkiv, and we lived with people, 160 people in the subway. The hero of Prasti.
Was that Japanese guy, right?
With Fumi. Yeah, hey Fumi.
Fumi.
With the Japanese, and we got there and they were living there. They had nothing, like absolutely nothing, and so it was like, so we went out and we bought water and food and they had their leaders in the subway. They had everything sort of organised, but they just didn't have anything, like, because it was full scale war. Like. So we went out there and started organising the Red Cross, and I was doing all sorts of things. We had a guy there who was burnt, got medical attention for him, and we just helped the children. We went to orphanages around there. We just put in as much time as, it was 3 months we were living there, and we really, really helped the people. With Fumi, you bought stoves and fridges, and then they started cooking for the shelter. It's a subway. And and locals. So we were buying food and they were helping the other locals that had no power and stuff. And it was so good to see. It was just like, and you know, Fumi's Cafe came out of that.
Yeah.
And while I was there, I've got to say a big thank you to my dung beetle guys again. I sent a post back home and, you know, and I went, hey guys, I'm living in the subway and there's families here and elderly. And I said, I want to buy some tents. And everyone's like, what do you
Tent.
want
All
tents
right.
for? Yeah, what do you want tents for? I went, I want to buy tents for the families so they got a bit of privacy. And my rugby club, they just went, yep. Or people just threw money. I got $5,000 and I went out and bought bedding, tents, and the whole place became a little tent city in the subway. So if you ever see photos,
Yes,
and there's tents,
I did.
they come from Australia.
Those one are
Yeah,
yours.
yeah.
Oh, that's
They're
amazing.
Australian.
Thank you for
Well,
that.
they're Ukrainian, but Australia bought those for the people there to give them privacy, a place to get changed,
Yeah,
to get away, even though,
that's important
and
actually.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was,
that's
and that was a really big thing for me. I was like, yeah, this is so cool, and they were so appreciative. You know, it's hard living in a big, you know, it's cold. It's just this big open room. Trains are still operating when when there's power. Um, so that was a big thing. So so thanks, my rugby family. I say so.
that's so
They,
amazing to hear.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and reporters came through, and I see photos. I'm going, Australia bought those tents. My little Busselton community, from Busselton, yeah.
All right. The Scots rugby family. Thank you. All right. I have two important questions for you more, and um, one of them is I will try to explain what is as this channel is for mostly for international audience. I want you to try to show the picture of what is happening from inside because you are you are now you are in Ukraine and you spend a lot of time in Ukraine, but you're still a foreigner, So you're the person who lived the very peaceful life in quite different country and circumstances. So it's what I want you is to is to deliver the picture how you feel it, how you see it from inside for the out
From outside looking in.
for the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm on the inside looking. I've got a bigger picture because, yeah. Look, to be very honest, it's heartbreaking. I it's not not the suffering is there, but it's heartbreaking for me to see what the West hasn't done. To me, everything the West has done is all it's a token gesture to just, it does enough to just keep you going, but not enough to change anything. And talk, just, everyone talks. It's just bullshit. So that's why I'm here. I work around the bullshit and get things done. I'm here on the ground just doing shit. I'm doing it. So it's really heartbreaking to see. When I was in Kherson, I was with the military. I've spent a lot of time with the military in various places, and that they, and back in 23, they were restricted on how many artillery shells they could shoot, fire back because America put a debate on aid, so everything was stopped, and people were dying while America's going, oh, do we send them these, like what are we going to do, like. And it's heartbreaking to see. Everyone relies on America. The big tough guys out there, but they're not really. They've just got the money and they just dictate terms to everyone. And if they don't like it, they'll go to war against you. And I wish it wasn't like that, but that's the reality. And people die here. Well, I mean, here's something that I did in a little talk back in Australia, and they said, "Oh, why don't they just stop the war?" I said, "Look, everyone wants peace. Of course, everyone does want that." But I said, if you stop the war right now and everything stays the same, like Russia has this land, it's all theirs. I have friends here in Dnipro who I met in Odessa back in, her and her daughter, dear friends of mine, and her husband, they have family on the other side, on the other side of the river, in occupied territory. She's a school teacher, or was a school teacher. Her parents, who are the grandparents, and his family, they're all under occupied. They worked hard for their home, the home they built and lived in and done all this. And if that changes right now, she doesn't have a home to go back to. She doesn't have her job to go back to at school. She can't go back and see her family and grandparents. Now, that's not right. I'm not saying to keep fighting to prolong the war. This war would stop if Russia, it's that simple. You're wrong. I'm real.
That's
it's
okay. That's
like,
okay. We are on YouTube, so
yeah,
that's okay.
it's just that simple. So my friends in Kherson, refugees, another dear friend, her husband was killed by the Russians. Her son-in-law, a few days later, was killed by the Russians. I helped them down in Mykolaiv, and we're not doing enough. That's what's heartbreaking for me. Here I'm making a gnat's bloody, an ant's dick different. Not much, but I'm trying. The people with the money, that's the countries, we're a wealthy country, why aren't we helping? And then I got friends, it's not our war, but it's not the point. My grandfathers in World War II fought in Africa and up through Italy to stop this sort of shit from ever happening again. Apparently we're supposed to stop all the stuff, and yet because of the time difference, we now back to thinking, it's not, doesn't exist, like, is it still happening in Ukraine? Yeah, it is. And people are dying, and I see it. I've seen, I don't know how many thousands of people I've seen, Russians, Ukrainians. I know I'm probably a little bit sidetracked there, but it's disheartening. I'm on the right side of history. Are you? That's the question, And if you're not going to help and support Ukraine, you're not on the right side of history, and yeah.
As people say, money is always neutral, right? All right, and I don't want us to end up with this sad emotions. So motivate people, all right, because you are motivated. You have something inside. You have your inner voice, which is like on the right side of the history, and you can't ignore it. And there is a lot of people who maybe they think about that they should do something, but they have now not enough of motivation. So I want you to motivate people and to tell them that the good guys will live and the bad guys will die.
I can only speak for Australia and New Zealand. I sort of speak out of turn, but we live with the Anzac spirit. That's something that's quite profound for our countries. It's and I thrive off the Anzac spirit. It's hard to explain what it is, but people back home know what it is. It means a lot, and supporting Ukraine is supporting the Anzac spirit. Like I said, my grandfather's from Australia and New Zealand were in World War II here helping Europe. Even European people. We had people come die to help Poland and everyone. In that theatre. So just you don't see it as it's a money grab. It's people ordinary people dying because we're not doing enough, Forget about the rest of the stuff. Let's just get on and stop this stuff. Let's stop the war. However, we've got to do it, and I just hope that Ukraine comes out on top with their whole country back. I'd hate for some UN delegation to draw a line in the sand, like has happened in the past throughout history. They go, "Oh, you're now there, you're now there." Prime example is the Middle East. They draw a line, and there is nothing but conflict. It never stopped. So you've got to get away from that idea of, this is now Russia, because I don't think it will stop, because there's animosity there, and it's Ukraine. It's Ukraine's land. We know, everyone in the world knows this. You can try to deny it all you want. It's bloody Ukraine, and they deserve to have it back. To Russia, hell with them. Just a big bully. Just like, oh, we're a big superpower. Like, no, you're nothing. You're nothing. You just aimlessly killing not only your own troops, aimlessly send them off to battle because that you've got numbers to do it. Just Putin, Stalin all over again. Like, we try to get away from all that. The world's supposed to have changed. He doesn't care about Ukraine. He doesn't care about his own soldiers. If you're Russian, you've seen this. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't. That's why there's so many of you dead out there. And they don't necessarily want to be here, but they've got no choice. But they still are the enemy, and tough luck to them. Tough shit. I've got no compassion there at all. Just why would I? It's sad, yes, but nah. So it's it's for Ukraine. So it's their land. People deserve to go back to their homes, wherever it may be in Ukraine territory. Having UN forces on a line, drawn in the sand is not going to cut it. So. But that's not for me to say. That's just my opinion, and it's for Ukraine to decide what they want to do, and only Ukraine, not presidents or prime ministers or kings or anything else. It's for Ukraine to decide. Them to get together and say, hey, look, what do we want? What do we want? And whatever they decide, the West should back up and go, okay, it's all very well an outsider saying stuff, but it doesn't cut it. So look, yeah.
All right, we have extra 5 minutes, and I want you to tell, something from your heart, from inside, because what we are targeting on with our podcast is, as you know, we want to save these stories for history. All right, so in 20, 30, 50 years after, we will not exist, that time, and kids or historical, like the people who studying history or something, they will hopefully see this podcast, and you are the person who acting in times of war between Russia and Ukraine in 2025 for now. I want you to tell something, 5 minutes from your heart, to those people.
Look, I've helped, I would say, thousands of children and families here, and literally thousands. And I'd like to think I've made a little impact on all their lives, just with me being me. I mean, like I said, I'm a big kid. I love it, and I'm making a difference. I never knew if I was, but I'm, by all accounts, I am. So I'll take that and go with it. But the children I met on the trains and spoken to and gave lollies, the endless amounts of lollies I give out, and the hugs. Hopefully you don't forget either, and you cherish the memory of all the volunteers that have come here to help you, because that's basically what The volunteers are doing they're in the military, they do what I do, they're behind the scenes. There's volunteers in other countries helping you, not necessarily here on the ground, but there are millions of people out there, so just cherish their thoughts and memories, and hopefully people like me and like Pikachu and Fumi and my friend Paul, we've made a small little difference. We've created beautiful memories, and in such a shit time, I take the kids out and take them to a fun park, and they forget about this war for the smallest amount of time. That's sort of a miracle, Just they can just kids being kids, and in 50 years' time, you aren't going to be kids. You're going to have your own kids. So just remember and pass on this information. Keep it alive. Saying, hey, look, you weren't forgotten. My biggest thrill here is, and it touches me every time. Like, I'd love to end with this. I'm walking around the streets, and it doesn't matter where, over east, Ivano Frankfurt's where I've been, Lviv, and a Ukrainian will just come up to you and go, "Oh, you volunteer," and they just give you a hug, and I'm just like, "Wow, how cool is this?"
You know why?
Just
Do you know why? You think that you're not doing like a big job, but your job is big, and that's why when everything was started, we felt very lonely because we never know. We didn't know that, do we have any friends in this world, because now we have this uh Russia, which is huge, aggressive, and they attacking us, and we felt very lonely. And when those people, yeah, I see, and when those European people was starting to act and to help us and to support us, it was so unexpected, for us, because we didn't know if do we have any friends. And when people like you was arrived from safer countries, from safer places to help us, our people was, so that's why we are so grateful to you, to all of you. So thank you very much for each minute you invest to help us.
look, it's last cover possible. Well, it's not. I like saying that, but you're welcome. And and to the people that I come here for, Victoria, Susha, Anna, Veronica, Bogdana, Anna, the list, Constance, the list goes on. There's a lot of people out here, and hopefully you grow to become strong and become something to help regrow your country. If you do that, we won. So, yeah, that's cool.
Thank you. Thank you. That's it for now. We can relax. Thank you.
Bye.